with that. Oh, there you are.
Gary,
How you doing, Justin?
great. How are you?
Good. I just realized that I just had a Gemini on, and now I have another one.
I heard that. Are you?
Which with a Gemini
Are
day,
you?
and today's a Sagittarius day, which Sagittarius and Gemini are two ends of the same stick, right? So isn't that just ironic or funny? I mean, like you can't make these things up.
Hey, well, I mean, I think of it like this spine. So, yeah, we're one's at the top end, but there's a bottom end to it as well.
So so tell everybody. I mean, people are getting to know you, starting to get to know you through our community. Tell them a little bit about your background. We know you're a Gemini already, and so tell them a little. And your wife's a Taurus, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
She's March
yeah,
23rd. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah,
That's not Taurus.
or no, no, she's Aries. That's right. So yeah, I'll read her chart. I want to know. So tell them a little bit about how you got into this. I mean, you have athleticism.com, you've got EMF Rocks, but tell everybody a little bit about the background. Like, how did you get here?
Yeah, so I started off in the health space 26 years ago, working with the amateur and professional athletes. And I actually read an article in the newspaper about a guy making athletes better athletes. And that was at a Scripps clinic in La Jolla. And I just went over there at lunchtime and said, this is what I want to do. Before that, I was the epitome of a Southern California kid where I just was an athlete, two-sport athlete, varsity all 4 years in high school, soccer and tennis. And I ended up wanting to go to USC to play tennis, and I got hurt. And both my wrists gave out. I think they were misaligned from just lifting too heavy, and then I kept playing on them. And so literally two-handed backhand, forehand, I couldn't hit a racket at all. And so that ended my tennis career. So I got into basketball, and that was my outlet. But in addition to that, my dad had a neurological challenge from surgery. He had a staph infection in his spine, and they waited too long to operate on him. So when I was 7, they made him a quadriplegic by waiting too long to operate on him.
I didn't realize your dad was a quadriplegic.
Well, he retrained himself to walk and move again, but he had neurological challenges, just nerve pain his whole life. And so from age 7 on, I was always looking for things that would help facilitate healing. My dad and then me, I always knew my health wasn't optimized. I had 18, I ended up getting mono, and my system was clogged. And until I really looked into eating cleaner foods that I wasn't allergic to, that's when my system started to flush and I started to heal. So literally my early on, kind of the funny thing is what you were saying, Geminis get their ass kicked for the first 30 years or so. Mine was the first 20. And so from there, I just I had a gift for seeing things in sports and movement that other people didn't see, and gravitated into the health field. And so from there, it's gone from doing nerve work for sports performance and primal reflex training and just some incredible systems along the way, from Dr. Darren Weissman's Infinite Love and Gratitude, the Lifeline technique, to emotional clearing stuff. Literally doing that years ago. I was one of the first guys to eat a sandwich like a banana and peel the bread off of it because the bread wasn't enhancing for me. And they didn't have a protein style when
They didn't have
when I was
lettuce wraps back then.
No. So it's been quite a journey to get to here where I'm using. So it's all about light, sound, frequency, vibration, and bringing in energy, and working with basically the nervous system, which is essentially the fascia system, to really optimize performance. And so that's where I've gone in on with my practice, and I treat concussions, and we do some really fun stuff with athletes. I teach people to juggle, and we have one of the true unique human performance programs where we actually have an ambidexterity program where we're working on this whole body, whole brain, and connecting more pathways from above and below, and then from that, Gary, I saw an athlete breaking down. I shared this on the last slide, but we had a really strong fit athlete breaking down from wearable technology. He comes in, he said, Justin, my wrist has pain in it. And it was right below his smartwatch. And this is over a decade ago. And I said, well, let's take the radiation off your wrist. And right from there, the pain went away. And so that was really the aha moment for me, where I knew I wanted to look more into the universe, the physics behind we're one with the universe, and how this electricity is just manufactured differently than how we are. And so that brought me in on this journey of looking to nature, because we all look to nature to get grounded, right? So, yeah. So did I, and that's where we brought our EMF Rocks, our grounding bags with hand mined crystals, to the market. And now we're one of the leading natural EMF protection products sold through doctor clinics all around the country. And then have since rolled out an array of products, from toothpaste to MCT oils, lean oil, to plyometric jump bands. The list goes on and on. My wife has an essential oil company called Campo Beauty. So we have this incredible suite of products that we brought to the market. All are sold on athleticism.com. And you know, we just keep learning from grandmasters like you, my sensei, my new mentor. And well, new meaning I've probably been following you for about a year now, but the information that you share has just absolutely been amazing. And I want to lead the conversation by talking about the connection between the pressure system of the body and your breath work.
Yeah, and you know this because you're a free diver. You know what pressure means.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but let's go back into the fitness world. So I did, so Steve Cotter, so I have a really fun background where in our gym growing up, or we're with at Scripps Clinic, Shiley Pavilion in La Jolla, California, we had Steve Cotter, who is one of the two guys that brought kettlebells to the US. And Steve Cotter has IKFF kettlebell certification. And then we also had David Weck, which is the founder of the Bosu ball, in our program. So we had some just amazing guys in there. And so Steve Cotter, I would just get lessons from all the time. And he talks about this pressure system on the breathing. And when you can do the contractions, you actually get more out of your load. And so he would have you purse the lips, and then it's really, you know, really tight breath. So it's more like airway restriction. So you're restricting the airway, and we don't get that. The only time you get a restriction of airway is when you're exhaling underwater or you're playing a horn instrument. And I feel there's some type of a pressure system where your VO2 max, your lung capacity, everything gets stronger with that. But what I'm learning from you is when we counter rotate it and do that with the fascia maneuvers and even purse the lips, you're getting exponential results on unwinding the system and allowing it to have oxygen and nutrients that it's never had.
But I can't wait till you actually come in, and because it's going to freak you out a little bit when you actually come and touch me, because you know that when you sit in water, your body absorbs the water, right?
Yeah.
Well, what's around us?
Yeah, air.
Yeah, which is water. So when your fascia is loose enough, when you grab onto me and you feel me breathe, you'll feel my body expand at my knee, at my calf, which is partially bringing in and saturating more tissue inside my body. That's why when I'm sitting down, we were doing a breath test. I would do it as, you know, CO2 Tuesdays. And he was like, he kept testing me, and I'm like 2.5 to 3 breaths per minute sitting, and just normally, right? And he's like, whoa, wait a second here. And it's because I'm getting more satiation from the breaths that I'm taking. I have more expansion. I get more tissue. And because that's really what, at the end of it, that's what the Bohr effect, I only need to breathe to get the tissue full. And then when you scuba, when you dive down and you blow all your air out, it squeezes you. So it squeezes the oxygen out of you. That's why when you come up and you go, it feels like you ran a marathon because all that oxygen goes, your cells go like this, and then they go squeeze, 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 and they go poof.
I love it. And we did that this weekend. I got your buddy Raw out here in Laguna Beach, and we charged the ocean, and it was about 57 degrees. We were in it for 25 minutes or so, and had a good time.
Yeah, that would have been fun to watch. So,
Yeah.
so explain this a little bit, okay? You came to know. I mean, you got a lot of products in that, but one of the things that we were talking about specifically today is the EMF rocks. I mean, this has become a major issue. I mean, beyond anything else. What is out there as far as EMF protection, and how do the rocks work differently? Why do they work? Let's get into that, because that's what I think people want to know.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the physics of the universe too, and really backtrack a little bit and how we're one with it. So, I always ask, like, what's our environment? Just what you just asked. And it's air. Let's lean in on it's everything around us, and it can kill us or allow us to thrive, right? And so what I really want to lean in on is the atmosphere, which is ether, plasma, and these waves and particles travel through it. Now they can be native or non-native waves. And we're one with
for people, native and non-native. Let's break that down.
So a native waveform is a scalar wave. It's the foundation of every waveform, which is an unpolarized wave, which distributes equally in every direction. So the universe isn't a one-directional wave, right? We're all interconnected. And when you drop a pebble into a pond, does the splash of the pond go in a straight line to the right?
No, it goes everywhere. So
Everywhere.
then we go to a non-native wave.
They're all one-directional, Gary, or they don't work.
And the reason why is because I've got a device and I got to get to a tower. So it's optimizing the signal to get to a specific point.
Yes, exactly. And so they have to manufacture this stuff to be a polarizing waveform. That's different than how we're made, or else it couldn't communicate with something specifically, because they're looking endpoint to endpoint. And then ultimately the Internet of Things is to interconnect everything. So we're all interconnected on this stuff. And that's at least what they're selling. But that's not enhancing for our body because it's so different. And then when we understand, let's look at the speed of these waveforms. So you can pick up a meter and measure a speed of a waveform. And the meters are designed to measure certain speeds, like a milligauss meter, electric, magnetic field will measure about 50 to 60 hertz or waves per second. A dirty electricity meter, a Stetzer electric one is one of my favorite. You plug it in the wall and it tells you the static in the line, the amps to volts. And that measures 4,000 to about 100,000 waves per second. Then you can get a wireless meter, like an acoustimeter, and that's going to measure in 50 million to the billions of waves per second. So these waveforms have certain speeds. Now, there's a guy named Dr. Martin Pall out of Washington State University. He discovered through his research that the voltage-gated calcium channels, those are 4 big words for the gateway for your cells, mitochondria, to get energy or voltage, are immediately disrupted with low level. So ever since we put electricity into our homes, Gary, it's been challenging for our bodies. And on the scale of all the bigs, cancer, suicide, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, cardiovascular disease, infertility, the cancer, they've all gone skyrocket since electricity's come into play. And there's a lot of other variables too, but the one consistent one that's increased probably the most is the non-native EMFs. And that's all documented in the book, The Invisible Rainbow by Arthur Furstenberg. Now, when we're sleeping, our brainwave state is 1 or below 1 to 8 hertz or waves per second. That's a beautiful delta or theta brainwave state, which is really close to the Schumann resonance of the healing pulse of the earth at 7.83 hertz or waves per second. And then when our athletes are in the flow, everyone calls it in the zone, and they can't miss, their brainwave state's about 8 to 13 hertz or waves per second in an alpha brainwave state. So when we convert these to waves per second, everyone can understand and grasp that the 2.45 billion waves per second of a cell phone, the 60 to 90 billion waves per second of a one-directional 5G phone are completely different, and so 10 zeros faster. So if we had 10 zeros to someone's bank account, that's a big difference. You add 10 zeros to the speed of a polarizing one-directional waveform to our environment, that chips away at our biofield, that changes the chemistry in our body. It's a huge difference, and it's really disruptive for sleep.
So, I mean, so the idea is that, I mean, to sum it up, is that our natural waveform is native, and it goes out like ripples in a pond. Devices and electricity is like an arrow that pierces that native ray. So instead of circulating, I got one that goes right through to me. I hold the device, it's cutting through mine, which is breaking my circuit technically. And whatever happens in the outside happens in the inside. Would that be a way to explain it?
Exactly, 100%.
Okay, so then the traditional ways to do this, to block this, is we use things to block it or things to convert it, like a device that converts it, or a challenge that changes a waveform, or another one that pushes it away. But those aren't necessarily the most effective way. They do something, they feel good, but there's not necessarily the most effective way, right?
Right. And my take on it is, and we've already acknowledged it, that no one does it better than nature.
Yes.
So the key to everything is to get out into nature. And Eileen McCusick says it in a really profound way. She says we get a negative charge from the earth, we get a positive charge from the unpolarized light of the sun. We'll breathe in minerals. Hopefully we get it from our food these days. And then we get more from the water, and then we get that. The water is the conductivity of it all. If we're missing any one of those key elements, that's where our body battery is going to be compromised, and we'll see signs of dis-ease or lack of energy. So for me, since nature does it best and has the most incredible resonance, why wouldn't we use that as the answer? Because we already use it outside. So we're taking her resonance and we put it in a bag, and the bag looks like this. Basically, they're hand-mined crystals, and then we put it inside this, and this is the end product, that you put on your bed to create a coherence. And so then the question remains is, how much of the resonance of the earth can I bring in my home to create that coherence, that balance between all these polarizing waveforms? So we've established protocols with it to do that.
So the idea is that, and the reason why, because when you first sent them, the first thing I did is I opened up the bag. And I'm like, damn it, he didn't make this easy to open. And it's like, my son's like, because you're not supposed to open them. And so the idea is that the crystals are silica crystals. So they actually match us, because
Yes.
we are absorbent of these frequencies, and that's why they're wet. By being wet, and doesn't affect, of course, the signal goes right through the bag like it goes through a wall. So the wet crystal is a more effective crystal. If we're dehydrated, we malfunction. So that's why you keep them in the bags. Now, what they're doing is absorbing. When that one directional line, I got this big circle around me, the drop in the water, and then that one line spear comes through to me. I put that absorbent bag down below my bed, and it's enough to draw the signal away from me and my disruptive field. Is that a way to say it?
That's exactly it. And when you can create that coherence and the moisture, let's think of it this way. It's not wet, meaning like soaking wet. It just has a moisture content. It's alive and it has a resonance. And so shungite, amethyst, black tourmaline, all the other known crystals that have magnetic resonances in the market, you can display them, you can wear them. Ours, you can't. They have moisture with magnetic. So if that moisture is exposed to air, it dries out and turns to dust pretty quickly. So we double seal our products to preserve them. They'll last 2 to 4 years, and they're beautiful pink crystals, and they do have a lot of silica in it. And that's this whole, how we mine them, we hand mine them, the properties that are in the crystals, the purity of the stone, and then how we deploy them are all reasons why they're so strong. The resonance is really powerful. And I was on yesterday and someone commented, I was on your live as well, just in the audience. And someone said, hey, I bought the grounding bags and I didn't sleep well that night. And the reason someone doesn't do well with it is because they have to flush that layer of toxicity in their energy field.
Yeah, the very first part, I mean, that's the same thing when you start drinking hydrogenated water. Yeah, the very first thing is I feel really good, lots of energy. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm rashing, I'm puking, because I'm getting rid of the toxins. The body is designed to get rid of an intolerance. And when it can't, it just works its way around it and doesn't even bother trying anymore. And that's what's happening is, yeah, I mean, I wasn't in the spot to notice that, but I have heard that. But they have to, what I noticed is it takes about 28 days, which is a human habituation cycle, because light, food, frequency creates a cascading series of hormonal releases and function releases in the body, which are habituated. When I walk in the room and somebody looks at me the wrong way, I already know that they're going to say something. I get angry. I've already got my hormones up. I'm already sweating and I'm ready to jump back at them, because the human experience is a series of habits. The body says, I know what that habit is. I'm going to go right to the end. I'm going to find the fastest way there. And what you're doing is disrupting that habit. That's why it takes a full moon cycle to actually get your body adopt, and it gets better each and every day, I think.
It does, and there's ways to accelerate it. And one of the fun ways to do it is, and this is the only product out there where you can do a self-home care protocol of a detox of your biofield. And so what that looks like is, if someone were to have a grounding bags, you literally tap on it. So you can tap on it, and it's like activating a homeopathic tincture. It activates the properties inside of it by tapping. That will 10x. Yeah.
Now so people carry a lot of people in our community carry the little tiny bag. They'll put it in their briefcase. And some of them actually wear it on their body. I've seen them do that. Mm-hmm. And the difference between this and other technologies, like, I mean, let's go there, because it's important for people to know, like if I'm using like an Omni Balance sticker on my phone, if I have it on my phone there, it's doing something to the signal on my phone. If I'm using the rocks, it's actually taking all the signal, non-native signals, and absorbing it. So it's drawing that energy in. It's like drawing it all the toxins away from me. So it's different.
Right. So let me touch on two things. First, I'll start with the other products for EMF protection. I want to ask everyone, do you all like eating GMO food? No way. So why would we want a modified resonance in our environment to try to combat the other modified resonances? To me, it's just not something that makes sense. So again, we look to nature to do that. So what these other products are doing is they're manufacturing a resonance, they're creating one, they're putting on a sticker, they're embedding it in a metal, they're putting it on a pendant. So they're modifying a resonance to do it. And there are energy fields in it. And it's definitely different than our energy field. The colors are different. But it's just modified. So we look to nature. No one does it better than nature. So, and it's same thing with plugging in the wall. Why would you want to plug something into your grounding, outlet? Electricity runs on top of the wires. It doesn't go inside a wire. So if your bed's touching the wall, it's charged to the level of the outlet. So if you're plugging something into the ground, you're still in that whole system of electricity. And to me, it's a fuel effort. So the grounding sheets, like Clint Ober's work, I love his book, I love his messaging, his studies, but their products aren't that great. Same with Dr. Mercola.
Yeah.
Like he says, sleep in a Faraday tent. Like he has a great book called EMF'd. I wrote one called Grounded by Nature. That's great.
I don't think he likes me that much. I personally, I don't think he likes me that much. I had one really weird interaction with him, and it was because our product, our fascial fuel, it does not require MCT oil to put the body into ketogenesis or into ketosis, and his whole program was around that one message, right? And I'm like, well, no, we use a short chain triglyceride, which is butyric acid. And like a homeopathic, we just stimulate your body to produce more butyric acid. What's more natural than that?
Yeah.
It's back to nature. At the end of it, I think the common thing to say is this, is that people who have nothing else, there are different ways to accomplish the same task. It's not that anything else isn't going to work or create a positive effect, but it's if I can get the best effect, like the best effect for me, and I notice it because I live in nature in Lions Bay. I don't have them down here, which when you come down here, I want you to bring some. I don't have them down here, but the way that I sleep in Lions Bay, I can't describe, and I'm already in nature, and it's funny because I didn't realize I had to lean it against the bedpost. And when I lean it against the bedpost, it changes it.
Yeah. It's got to be touching the bed. So put it between you and your wife at the head of the bed, and you'll notice a huge difference. And remember, all this stuff, this calcifying the pineal gland of these EMF, they're big stressors on the body. So they're oxidative stress, they calcify the pineal gland. Our brainwave tries to figure out what's pinging it in the middle of the night, meaning what are those other ancillary signals of smart meters or cell towers nearby, or your cell phone just or downloading information. All these waveforms, they call them smart because they're always looking for signals for something to talk to it. So is our brain. And our brain will tap into those waveforms, and then we go into what we call a twilight sleep. So we don't get into that deep restorative sleep unless you're out in nature in a quiet area that has the resonance of your home as close to nature as you can, and that's what the grounding bags do if you live in a really dense area with a lot of electricity.
Yeah. It's noticeable. It really is. When I first tried it, I didn't quite get it because I hadn't put my head into the reasons why. But I did notice right away that it changed my resonance. Then I also noticed carrying the little one around. I noticed the difference. And one thing that I have been experiencing though is that EMFs used to have an effect on the way I thought, the way I felt, stuff like that. Lately, since my fascia's opened up into this really crazy fluey stuff, it doesn't bother me like it used to.
Wow, I love that. And that's what I'm really working towards. I think we're all on this amazing healing journey. And we were talking the other day where you're literally, half a dozen years or so into it, and you're just learning. And I'm coming in a year behind, just into your work. And I'm thinking you're the grandmaster, and you're just learning. Yeah, and we're all just, unwinding just billions of stuff that we've accumulated over, the course of all of time. And that's, I've never found a system And I shared this before. I love systems. I really respect that the processes of it, because everything has order. And when you can learn a system that really can self-heal, that's amazing. This is all I've been looking for my whole journey. And I think Troy Casey went on and said something, and he's a really good friend of mine. And I backed him and I said, hey, I want to debate anyone on systems, and I'll line up every system that's out there. And I know a majority of them, like, I've studied them. And there's not one that checks all the boxes like your human garage. It just doesn't. And what this opening up this fascia and understanding and unlearning what we've been taught of how the body works, it's so true. I mean, it's not a pulley system. Like it just, there's a pressure system. And when we start to look at the greats in different areas, they'll take segments of, they'll take tidbits of it. Even Olympic lifting, create a pressured system around yourself. There's breath that ties into it. A kettlebell system. There's weightlifting systems out there, just free weights. There's, you know, even movement patterns where you're breathing. There's so many different components that I feel tie into it that are so subtle, that of intricacies that we can geek out on forever. But your system is one that literally in the last several months, I was saying the pressure that I've got into, and since our bodies are harmonic and we're this holograph of light, and our sound really determines our health as well, I've had more pressure to hoot and holler louder.
You can sing.
Yeah, I can
which
sing
is
it.
crazy. I've Justin, my whole life, I've wanted to sing. I remember from my when I was boyfriend girlfriend with my first wife, my mother of my children. I went to one of those elaborate, and this is back in the late '80s. I went to one of these elaborate new karaoke things where you could go in and sing, and it was basically karaoke on steroids, and they record you. And so I recorded a song for her, and it was a Randy Travis song, right? And I got it, and I'm like, that sounds like shit. I like I paid a lot of money for it. I'm like, they couldn't even tune my voice, right? And then I went up a couple of times in karaoke because I grew up as an adult in Vancouver, so lots of karaoke there, and I was horrible. I mean, horrible. But now I can sing at pitch, at tone, and like you said, like you were doing the same thing. You can belt it up, and that's how I knew that you were having the experience, because you came to me last time we talked and said, yeah, I can sing now.
It's crazy. And so one experience I want to share too, tying it back into those waveforms, that they're invisible, you guys, this EMF stuff. So we don't hear it mostly. Most people aren't able to hear at that bandwidth. But when you get into the water, you can hear it, and go underwater, you can hear it. So on Monday, last week, I had one of the most incredible experiences. I live in Laguna Beach, and there are about 15 to 20 dolphins in our cove. And they were at the north end, and I was watching them for about 20 minutes, and then they just, for some reason, they came right to the south end, right where I was. And so I'm like, okay, got to jump in the water, because that's kind of what I do. It was 57 degrees, so I went out and swam with the dolphins and played with them for about a half hour in the water, all alone. Nobody else was out there. People were videoing, taking pictures. Who's that crazy guy going in the water? That was me. And so when I went underwater, and they started to swim away as I jumped in, and I gave a big hoot and holler, like really loud, with my new strong voice. All of them were like, oh, it's a party. They turned around and swam at me. And so it was the craziest thing ever. And then they started swimming all around me, and I kept going under and hooting, and they were eking like crazy. Their sounds are so loud. And normally I could hear them when they're in their coat, but it's softer and at a distance. And these guys were so loud, and then they're smacking, they're cracking that they do. I mean, that scared me. I was like, what in the world is that? It was so loud. So I had them, they were within arm's reach, and for about a half hour we were hanging out. But when there's electric foil board in our cove, Gary, that electricity sounds like noise pollution. And it's like static on a radio station turned all the way up. So that's what our bodies hear with this EMF stuff all the time. And most people don't hear it, but animals can hear it. The plants can feel it with their nervous systems as well, but we just don't.
You know, so let me tell you experience, because part of my journey to reset myself was to harmonize with nature. And one of the ways I knew I could do it is in Vancouver. We have Canada geese everywhere, right? And they're pretty mean. Like if you piss them off, they come after you, and they don't care how big you are. And they'll chase people down. Like they'll chase and they'll bite. It's not pretty. So I would do a fascia maneuver session, and when I'm doing it, all the crows would come in, like to the point where I'm like, wait a second here. The first time I thought, wow, the crows are loud, but every time I did it, the crows would come around and and we're right in nature in the mountains in Vancouver. Well, the geese, I would walk, I'd bend down and do the session. I neutralized my energy. So now I'm present. And I would bend down and I would just walk through them, or walk through them slowly. And this is the craziest thing, because they normally, if you get too close to them, they move away from you, or they'll honk at you, right? And then I'm crouched down right beside them, and they're walking around me. And then I thought to myself, because I'm being completely present, neutral, no thoughts. I'm observing. And then I thought, wow, this is beautiful. And as soon as I did that, it went, rah, 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 rah. A thought is a wave. And a thought caused a reaction. And the other thing I've noticed is that I'll be in the water and I'll sit up and totally twisted, and I float. Now, I've never floated in my life. I float like a boy now. So I'll be in totally twisted in the water in a fetal position, my knees up, and I'll just be in the cove in Vancouver. And harbor seals there, they don't come around people. All of a sudden, I open my eyes. Jay's trying to talk to me. He's behind me. We're just sitting there, breathing, meditating, doing our fashion, doing our processing of organs, and they're like right there in front of me. And I think the reason why I'm saying this to you is that my experience is where you are telling me you're at, is nature becomes very attractive to us when we're present.
Yeah,
we're one with it. Oh, here's one other story I'll tell you too. You can see this when you come down here, or when you go to we're at Mayakan, which we were there for a month. It's on the Siakan Peninsula Reserve, and we brought people in, and there are mosquitoes there. Like we're in the jungle meets the ocean, and my entire life I've been bitten by mosquitoes. Like I'm the guy, I'm the magnet, I'm the EMF magnet for mosquitoes. They get me, and now not one bites me, no matter what. I think there's a harmony, and what it is, it's to have our crystal to be clear. And when we're clear, because our brain is only thinking to manage whatever the imbalance is. And I believe that's what was happening when you're in the water. You use your voice, but the reason they come to you is because you feel in harmonization with nature.
Definitely. And especially dolphins, especially in the water. For me, that's where I really resonate. And these waveforms are so huge. And what I want to let people know is these cell phones aren't security blankets. I mean, get a meter and point it at it, and you're holding a massive battery with a router in it. And that's not enhancing. And then they have GPS signals. And so the meters will meter out. They're so strong. These signals are so strong. Telecom has to have patents and make these sensors and these adapters to even allow your screen to work. So your screen wouldn't work unless they had these other parts to try to, dampen that signal strength or turn it away, or whatever patented device they use with the millimeter waves that are blasting out of it. That's how disruptive they're. They have departments that all they do is work on creating that's just so your screen on your phone will display things and not be distorted. It's crazy.
Hey, somebody asked a good question, actually, based on what we're talking about, because basically air, just like water, is like when we ionize water, we're just taking impurities out of it and restructuring it. Would it purify the air in any way?
I'm not sure about that. I mean, does the earth purify? You know,
Does. It
it
does.
does
Yeah, because what happens is in nature, it changes just like water's changed by an ionizer. That'd be worth a test.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, I want to be careful on what I know to be true. To say what the way I like to describe it is, it's creating that coherence. So it's taking a one directional waveform and allowing it to not be disruptive for our body. So what's that?
Somebody asked, can EMFs cause heart palpitations?
Oh, definitely. So the symptoms are, first, what happens is the voltage gated calcium channel, so mitochondria challenges. And then you have oxidative stress, calcifies the pineal gland, destructures water, 2.45 gigahertz or 2.45 billion waves per second is the start of where EMF starts to destructure water. From there, we've seen in the body, the eyes, the teeth, the thymus, and your intestine areas are the 4 areas that get decharged. Excuse me. So you can tap on the grounding bags and cover each of those areas one at a time to recharge your body. That's huge. The tapping will 10x it. The localized areas will give your body more polarity, because when you're decharged, it's really tough to heal when you lose that polarity. That's why getting out in nature is so powerful.
Epithelial tissue, eyes, the lungs, and the bladder actually are very related. So that would actually have a commensurate effect on the bladder and the lungs.
Awesome. So I think those 4 are like a athlete sprains their wrist or their ankle so often. Those are more the weak links, and then you'll see the other kinetic chain take over. So the first symptoms of EMF challenges are cognitive: lack of focus, memory, anxiety, fatigue, headaches, lack of sleep, ringing in the ears. Then you go into level 2, which would be more non-trauma concussion symptoms. So nausea, vomiting, seizures, muscle twitches, bloody noses, rashes on the skin, more severe headaches like a migraine. And then you go into the bigs, the cancer, suicide, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, cardiovascular disease. And then the biggest one we're really seeing now, which is infertility. And that's why they're letting everyone into our countries, because we can't keep up with the population replenishment.
Yeah, it's that's one we'll have a conversation about when you're here, because it is way worse than anybody thinks right now. It's like we think this generation is having kids later. When I was a kid, there was always somebody popping off in high school getting pregnant. All our friends were getting pregnant. We still had birth control back then. But why are they not getting pregnant now? They're having way more sex, and they're not getting pregnant.
Yeah.
And what the general narrative is, it's all because they're waiting till later in life. But what happens is when they try to get pregnant, they become human garage and say, I'm infertile. And that was one of our specialties, was bring them. But that's a whole topic. And I'm going to talk about that. That's actually one of the reasons why I closed the clinic, because I saw it coming. Somebody asked the question, does sunlight suppress EMFs?
Yes. I mean, Dr. Jack Cruz is heavy on that. He's like, everyone move to the equator and get to, closer and more sunlight. And those waveforms, he feels, dampens the stressor from the phased array satellites and the Wi-Fi. So a stronger, sunlight will create more coherence for you as well.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to, the more I go into this experience, the more natural I become. The less I want to use tools, the less I want to use gadgets. Like I've used frequency machines, I've used light machines, I've used near infrared machines. I've used all of this technology through my time, and now choose to use none of it. Because
Yeah.
at the end of it, what those technologies are trying to do is to get our body and our fascia and our cells to vibrate at a specific frequency. But the reason it doesn't vibrate at that frequency, it's like lifting my arm, it's restricted. And if we remove the restriction, we're there already.
Yeah. We use technology, not let technology use us, and really understand what it's designed for. It's a great tool, but what they're doing is they're using it for surveillance marketing to sell us things just more readily. And you guys, we got to develop some proximity protocols with technology. And my computer's hardwired. There are adapters where you can hardwire cell phones and still be on them. Start to understand, that you can convert a smart meter into an analog. And there's a great documentary movie called Take Back Your Power. Josh Del Sol made about 15 years or so ago. Check that one out. Understand how we interplay with our environment. And even if it's invisible, it doesn't mean that it's not stressing you out. And these EMFs, these one-directional waveforms, are super polarizing. So understand your environment, identify it, grab meters to meter it and to identify it, develop protocols for absorption ratings, how close you are to it. And then at night, especially at night, make sure you at least can turn the electricity off in your bedrooms to get the resonance as low and slow as you can and as close to nature as possible, because we know that we rev one with the earth.
So in Lions Bay, we have one room called the treehouse, and because it's detached from the house, it has its own power. So at nighttime, you shut it off, and the sleep is just amazing. It's bizarre. So a question. A lot of drive towards electric vehicles. What's happening in electric vehicles?
So I had a colleague that was working with professional athletes, and all he did was blood work. And he was so famous, he got picked up by the military to work with special forces guys. And he threw in a variable of guys and girls driving electric cars. And it was the single biggest marker change. They were 18% lower testosterone for sitting on that massive battery. So electric cars is probably one of the worst things that you could do, especially for reproduction, because your organs are right. Reproductive organs.
Electric car though, okay? I got electric car. I don't have the ability to fix it. What does it take for me to convert it so driving it's not gonna?
So with our product, EMF Rocks, you want 7 grounding bags behind the driver's seat. And it's the same that it would take to clear a home with solar, because you're storing all this energy in a battery, and that causes a vibration. But when you're in a car, you're just sitting right on top of it. And they try to block it, but they can't block that vibration. So you get the milligauss from the front dashboard, because they have this massive computer on the, which is way bigger than my computer screen. And then it's all self-driving. So you're literally sitting in a microwave and cooking people. So this whole move to electric cars has just got to stop, because to use more of the electrical grid to use the vehicle doesn't reduce the usage on the on the grid.
But hey, you know what I see in China now and in Asia, they're moving away. China's moving away from electric vehicles. They already said it doesn't work. So what they're using is hydrogen fuel cells.
Yes.
Is one of them. Yeah, and really, really, really efficient. They're actually getting better mileage, less pollution out of that. I mean this is China, and they have made more electric vehicles than all of America has ever done. They make more in a year. So they have more actual experience with them. They have electric vehicle graveyards. And I noticed that the hydrogen fuel cells, so again, probably going to be the next wave. And I think it's one of the American manufacturers is actually reducing or stopping the electric vehicle. I can't remember who it was.
I'm not sure which one, but I really hope China can go towards hydrogen and roll it out in a big way. I think that would be really helpful for us. And the challenge would be financially. They control about percent of the electrical batteries and manufacturing and supply chain of electric vehicles. So if you are driving a car, everything in it's from China. It's not made in the USA.
There it is.
And
Ford.
So
Ford. Found on road dead. I mean, sorry, Ford. Ford stopped doing it now. Okay, but here's a good question. I mean, some people don't have the money. So it said, can they harvest rocks themselves? Is that possible?
No.
Is that?
No, I mean, we offer sales, in Earth Day we'll have
how much is it? It's not expensive, right? It's not
overly
expensive.
Yeah, it's the most feasible EMF protection product on the market. Most of them are thousands of dollars. Ours is $139.99 US. And and then you could step up as you can afford it. And then we offer big discounts, just a couple times a year. So especially for international shipping and such. So you guys, it's the most feasible natural protection that you could have in your home. But if you can't afford it, start doing things on your own. So get outside into nature, get grounded, touch a tree, hug a tree if you want, go climb one, even better.
Turn off your power at night.
Yeah. So put your feet, we'll start with outside, put your feet on the ground. Gary's barefoot, most of the week. And so I challenge everyone. I challenge everyone to be barefoot more often and get outside into nature. Me, I'm in the ocean pretty much every day. And so that's my way. And then this morning I walked the dog. I was on the beach. I did my, some breath work down there. So I'm putting in the work. So put in the work is much that you're putting in the work with the fascia maneuvers. Put in the work to ground yourself and to keep that polarity up from the breath work that you did. And then inside, then go through the protocols. Put your Wi-Fi on a timer. You can go $9, get an outlet timer at the hardware store. So your Wi-Fi turns on at night. Hardwire if you can. And then get a switch, have your electrician. It's a little more expensive, but have your electrician get an override switch and then have that on a timer where your electricity goes off in your bedroom at night for at least 6 hours or the minimum.
Yeah, so someone was asking that, and that's a good question. It's like someone said, well, you mean turn your Wi-Fi off? And yeah, great, turn your Wi-Fi off. But if you can turn your electricity off, if you can route your electricity, so like your bedroom in particular, turning it off because it goes around in the walls, right?
Yeah, so what turning the Wi-Fi means off is start with your phone. Go into your phone, swipe up, and you'll see all the settings for Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and cellular. Put it on airplane mode. Okay, that will turn all those off. If there's something that's partially not all the way off, go into your settings and go swipe it. You have to go directly into that Wi-Fi and swipe it so it goes all the way off. They've made these phones so that they're always on. They're trying to keep them always on. So
yeah, and they are always on too, right?
They are always on. So this is something that you really want to do is make sure your devices have these areas to turn off. Now these Wi-Fi routers, if you get them from the cable companies and such, they have alternating hotspots on it. So even if you basically shut the airplane mode off on there's already another one off. So you got to power them completely down so there's no power going to them. So that's
By the way, somebody was saying, well, it's too cold, right? And this is me in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because when my fascia is open like it is, I become cold intolerant or heat intolerant. The one other thing that happens is I don't burn in the sun anymore. And I'm a blue-eyed, white-haired, white dude. And normally I'm the guy that burns like 45 minutes in the Southern California sun. I would normally be burned. I go all day in the sun now and I don't have any burning.
That's amazing. amazing. I mean, I still have to watch my nose and the scalp, but other than that, I'm kind of like you, where I take it in really well because I've cleaned up my intake, and I've been doing the fascia
Yeah,
maneuvers.
what's
And so,
burning is the stuck fluids in the fascial layers. That's what's burning.
yeah, and that's where people get cancer, is he gets in synthetic, margarine per se. It'll hold pockets in there, so the fascia can't flush it out, so it creates a pocket, and people get skin cancer. Then there's one of my neighbors. He's basically been a huge Tesla guy for a long time, and he just got skin cancer, and so he's mad at the sun. He's like, I gotta get out of the sun. And I'm like, so you're gonna blame the sun? And I said, did you ever put sunscreen on your whole life? Did you ever eat seed oils or margarine? And you've driven an electric car for 10 years, literally 10 years. He's had, 3 different, Teslas or 4. But it's the sun's fault. Like we've got to unlearn what's being told out there.
Listen, it starts off with the basics for me. Where I came from was the bones aren't structured. After that, everything about our body is a lie. The brain doesn't move the body. The muscles don't create the movement. The muscles respond and stabilize movement. After that, everything about our existence is a lie. And here's all the science, and people go, where's the science? And I'm like, all the science is done on dehydrated, sick, non-functioning people. We can't, I don't want to compare myself to people who are functioning, who are dehydrated and sick. That's science, but that's like stupid science. And all of the science about the human body is based on that right now. And I hear some smart dudes. I mean, people that I used to respect, people that are highly respected. I hear them talk right now, and I'm like, yeah, there's a problem here. If we were so smart and we had this figured out so much, then human beings wouldn't be so sick. And
Yeah.
we are sick.
And a lot of them are missing it. They'll say some things. They'll lean in on kind of some of the direction we're going, but they don't get it. They don't get that the fascia is everything. It's the structure of the body. They don't get that you need the diatomaceous earth and the iris sea moss, to help flush and hydrate. They're missing these key elements, and they're still talking around the fascia system.
Yeah.
And you're the only one that really is talking to it. And so I keep sharing and sharing, and I want to ask everyone here listening to share this information with as many people as you can, because there's someone out there that needs help, and they might not tell you, but they're searching for it and they're looking for it. And it's just crazy. And I had a touching story last year. One of my friends, we met at Music and Sky. It was a group through Alphabetic, Dr. Berlando, which I'm going to connect you with him because you'll love his work. You got the same page on everything. And he was dousing the stage, and he was big. He's an architect, and he was big into biogeometry, and he was dousing the stage, and I was going to go up and speak at the event. So I walk up to him and I go, hey, where do I stand to speak? And so that was my first connection with this guy. Well, several years later, we became friends, and a year ago, he asked me to go on basically it was his goodbye tour. He had cancer, and he was dying, but he didn't tell me. And I had a feeling he had something going on, but he was this big, strong dude, and I was helping him in a few other ways. And so I started to show him some stuff. I even told him about you, but he just didn't get it, or I didn't know the extent of it at that time. And so he recently passed. And I mean, this is a huge thing. Like, people are on their own journeys and they need help. And it's up to us to be the facilitator, to share this information and get it out there to help people get out of, these crazy situations. Because I know to be true that him doing what you're showing and teaching in your system and employing all this stuff could have allowed him to be probably one of the most amazing architects and biogeometry guys of all time.
this is going to happen to a lot of people. And, you know, I have some very strong predictions about it. I won't go on here, but people who are in our system and in our Lifestyle Artist program that you've heard, and we've been accurate. We've been right with what it is. But there's a point where people are going to realize that cancer is a parasite, and frequency allows that parasite to live. And so if we, in our native form, there's nothing on the planet Earth that can hurt the human body. And when we are participating in non-native activities, we become non-native after a while. And then we become susceptible to all the environmental issues. When we stop eating, our body produces stem cells. That means we're born to heal. And the healing mechanism is completely within us, but we have been trained and taught through society that we are dependent, that we're broken, we're fragile, and that even down to like when we get what we call a flu and we're like, I'm sick. Sickness is a condition that leads to death. We're not sick. Our body is actually healing itself at that moment, but we say I'm sick. So we have been taught and tricked into saying things, believing things that fundamentally are the opposite of what they are.
Exactly. And that's every industry. Every single industry has lied to us. Like a pharmaceutical, a drug and a mask is health. Electric cars are the best for the environment. You know, and even higher octane gas is better for an engine. That's a lie. They just want us to pay more for gas. I mean, you go into the agriculture. Like, let's modify food and then riddle it with pesticides and herbicides and glyphosate and feed more people. I mean, this whole spectrum. And then you go in the dental world where, you know, with our toothpaste, I'm all excited about that. Just helping people, you know, just get the fewest ingredients in there to help with their dental health and help rebuild enamel. But like they've been saying, put mercury and then fluoride in your teeth to help with remineralize it and help your teeth. I mean, this whole thing, you know, is a big lie, and you're the one that's the beacon of light that's really sharing it. So thank you for your voice and everything you're doing.
Yeah. You know, thank you for all the research and all the stuff you're doing. I really love your products. I'm looking forward to spending more time with you. I'm looking forward to you coming down here. Looking forward to coming to California to do an event. By the way, we locked in our event date for Austin, and maybe you want to come out for that. It's going to be May 18th, 19th.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're still looking at that California date. So I'm looking forward to seeing you doing some stuff in real time. And experimenting. That's really what I want to do. Thank you, Justin.
I'll let you know when, and then I'm looking at the site today for Orange County for you. So I'll get those back to you real soon.
Hey, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gary. Goodbye, everyone.
Take care. Okay.